What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Meaning of Podcast. I am Ace.
This is RB3.
And this is the podcast where we get into the deeper meaning of your favorite filmmakers' movies. And this episode, we're talking about it. It's the hottest movie out right now. It's one of the biggest movies out of all time, as far as money-wise, so far at least. And that is Black Panther. And that is Mr. Ryan Coogler. We're going to be talking about his films. He has 3 movies that have pretty much, you know, defined his career and pretty much gave him like a huge platform to make Black Panther. And that is Fruitvale Station, Creed, and obviously now Black Panther. And Ryan Coogler is a director. I feel like he's on the come up, and I feel like he's one of the hottest directors right now, especially with this huge opening weekend that Black Panther just had. So we're going to be talking about his films, guys. I'm super pumped for that because I feel like he's a director to be on the lookout for, and I guarantee we're going to hear his name come up like a million times in the next coming years because he's, oof. When you make that much money and it's your 3rd film, bro, you're solid. But before we go ahead.
No, I was going to say, anybody who makes that like great transition from small budget to big budget like that, like smoothly, that's impressive.
And it's always like you could see a lot of filmmakers make a lot of money opening week. I mean, James Gunn did it. Taika Waititi did it. But Coogler did it. Like he almost beat like Avengers, bro.
Like beat Avengers 2.
He beat Avengers 2. Look, this is next level. This is next level what he did as far as money wise. But before we do that, guys, we're gonna talk about the comments from last week's episode. Once again, guys, we appreciate you guys leaving us comments. Comments are probably the best way you can communicate with us. Let us know what you think. Let us know how you feel about the episode. Let us know who you want us to talk about. We usually acknowledge those. Sometimes we completely ignore them. No, I'm kidding. We don't. But we do appreciate you guys leaving us comments. It's always a great opportunity for us to have a communication with you guys. So please go ahead and do that, especially for this episode too, where we want to hear your thoughts on Coogler's movies. But we're reading last week's episode where we did Steve McQueen. And that episode, bro, woo! All them Steve McQueen fans out there.
They came out to
support. All 200 came out to support. Movie Man Naked Jesus says, this proves how much Michelle Williams looks like Carey Mulligan. So the entire episode for Shame, we talked about the movie Shame starring Michael Fassbender and Carey Mulligan, not Michelle Williams. I called her Michelle Williams the entire time, and I proclaimed that she's awesome, and that's why Michelle Williams is a great actress. Wasn't out, it's not Michelle Williams. It's Carey Mulligan. Whoops. Sorry.
To be fair, I completely thought it was Michelle Williams the entire time too. So it wasn't even. I remember when The Great Gatsby came out, and I was doing little Facebook reviews or whatever. I don't know if it's still up, but I wrote this long giant thing about how much I enjoyed Great Gatsby. But the entire review I called Carey Mulligan Michelle Williams. I just had no idea. I didn't even know.
Oh my God. I genuinely feel bad about that one because that's an easy way. All I have to do is look it up. It's all you have to do is look it up. You know those comments that always say that? It's true. I should have looked it up.
Man,
my bad.
And I've been so bad with names these past few weeks because on a lot of the Black Panther reviews, I keep saying that with Denzel Whitaker is the son of Forrest Whitaker. I keep saying that. I'm like, fuck. And then every comment's no, that's not him. I'm like, fuck, I feel really bad about that. This is screwing up a lot of names, man. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm not good with names. I'm not good with faces.
I'm usually good with names, and that's why that one I was just like, man, that's a big drop. And I'm like, are you sure they're not the same person? I wish sure Carey Mulligan and Michelle Williams aren't just
why haven't they been in the same movie
exactly at the same time? I don't know, man. Maybe they're just moving really fast, and that's why it looks like 2 people. Junk Muffin says, you guys should go into the industry together. Ace writes and RB3 directs. Hey,
that's a team right there.
That's a team right there, man. I'll write my ridiculous over the top sci-fi movies. Where everyone has really cool superpowers, like Altered Carbon.
Ooh,
have you seen that show yet?
I haven't seen Altered Carbon.
Oh my God, dude, that show is if I wrote a show, that's my show.
Really? I heard it's very Blade Runner-esque.
It's kind of not.
Oh really? Okay.
It's very if Blade Runner was written by a horny 17-year-old who likes action.
Oh, really?
Me?
Oh, really? Okay.
17-year-old version of me? That's Altered Carbon.
Oh, that's funny.
Where it's just all right, and then the guy comes in, and then he does a crazy martial arts scene, and then he makes out with the girl. And I'm like,
shit.
That's Altered Carbon.
Oh, that's crazy.
So,
I have to check that out.
It's very much like a Stars show. Have you seen a Stars TV show?
Yeah.
It's how Stars is super over the top, where it's super bloody, super ridiculous. and this is a star show like in space, like with Netflix. It's not in space, but like in the future on Netflix.
Yeah.
Where it's just like the most ridiculous,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
super cool kind of thing.
Yeah.
I love that show.
Man,
but
Netflix. Man, you
Netflix
know,
is killing it.
I don't know
It's
if you've
killing
been
it.
reading those headlines of people like shitting on Cloverfield Paradox, like the opening numbers.
Opening numbers, but I was gonna say that's probably me.
All right, the movie's not good.
The movie's not good.
I agree, but a lot of headlines are like, "Oh, it flopped. Oh, it's only did 2.8 million viewers in the first 3 days." For one, you don't know those numbers. That's not like you can't even like Netflix doesn't release numbers, so they don't know that. And for two, it's like if that was released, I tweeted this earlier this week. If it was released theatrically, that's a $30 million opening weekend. You know what I mean? For a movie with like no promotion with one Super Bowl commercial coming out like that, that's spectacular. But you know, old media.
Well, it's all based on marketing, right? People don't know the power of marketing. The fact that they only released literally one commercial the night it came out, that's all they did. That's all the marketing they did. And the fact that it made that much numbers and that much hype in the first night of marketing, that's a win in investment.
It's a win. And then, but you know, websites are going to compare it to Bright with 11 million viewers, which, by the way,
Bright, the first ad for Bright was shown at the Oscars in March of 2017, and then Bright premiered 2017 of December. That's essentially a year of promotion. This one was like one promotion. Comic-Con, two
big stars, big name writer, director. Like
Cloverfield was literally just like, here's a movie, guys. And they were like, oh, let's see how it does, and it did really well. Did really well.
So I'm just so annoyed by it. It just makes me sick that like all these old media outlets, because they're not making money off of advertising for it, Cloverfield. That's why. It just frustrates me so much that people will run with that kind of like headline and biased, you know.
Still, I'm a massive fan of the Cloverfield franchise, so I was hoping for something more. Strange House Productions says Hunger, Shame, and 12 Years a Slave are all masterpieces in their own right. McQueen is without a doubt one of the greatest filmmakers alive. I honestly agree with that. I think he's hit 3 out of 3, and all 3 of those films are like baller films. I mean, we talked about it on the episode. If you want to hear about it, please watch the episode since you probably didn't. But yeah, I really do feel like Steve McQueen is definitely one of those directors that deserves all the credit and all the praise, because 12 Years a Slave got that Oscar recognition, but Shame and Hunger could have if they had a bigger push, or if they had, you know, more promotion behind it, because I do feel like those 2 films are awesome films, like really good films. Today we're addressing another filmmaker with only 3 films in his filmography and his catalog. Let's jump into it, man, because that's what everyone wants to hear about. Let's jump into Ryan Coogler. Now, Ryan Coogler is a director who got his start off Fruitvale, but he's a USC guy, right?
USC graduate student.
So he went to USC with same film school you're going to.
Yeah, exactly. He was in the graduate program. He did his undergraduate, I think at a college up in the Bay Area. But he came to USC, and they even still to this day, like, they have these little like old like alumni short film presentations, and usually they always just show like Coogler's like old films as like examples,
because he did a lot of short films, right?
He did a lot of short films, and graduate students, of course. And he went to the same, and he was in the same classes as homie who does the scores for his movies. Ludwig. I can't pronounce his last name.
His last name. He's like Swedish or something. Right?
Yeah. I've been butchering his last name all week. But that has been he's met his editor through film school as well. I'm not sure about his cinematographer, if he met her through that too, but it's like he generated like this small network of filmmakers while he was in film school
that he's now making movies with. That's so baller, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the dream, right?
I mean, that's what film school is all about.
You meet the homies, and then you make dope movies. Fingers crossed, you do. But it's funny, you met him, right? Before you said you've met him.
Well, he came on our show at USC back in, it was like late 2015, I think, right when Creed was coming out. But like I didn't like meet him directly, but I got to like be where he was, and like during that interview I got to be in the studio. It was really dope, man. It was really amazing. And he had like a real, he brought like a really cool perspective to being like a UC graduate, but also doing undergrad like at I believe it was in San Francisco, where he's from, like in the Bay Area. But like he studied like math and science before, but then
That's right.
then transferred into doing film because he just felt like that was the passionate way to go. So that's always really inspiring to somebody like me and to like other people out there, because like you can still pursue film school and do all that. And then I know for like Fruitvale Station, he got help from funding with the Sundance Institute. They do like a 1 week program through there. Where you have to like the Sundance screenwriting program where you like craft like a script and like that time like try and put that together. So the script for Fruitvale was like put together in that kind of way, and like through the help of like Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah, he has a production company, right? Forrest Whitaker.
Forrest Whitaker, yeah. I think Forrest Whitaker even has directed some pictures in the past too, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, through putting all of those different resources together, also like grants from like the San Francisco, I think it was the San Francisco Film Academy or something like that. He got some grants from that too. If Ryan Coogler's watching this episode, I'm totally butchering your history, dog. I'm sorry. I feel really bad about that. But it's great seeing like that kind of like a building story coming through. Somebody who is frankly African American, is young, and he's from
super young.
Yeah, he's 31. And
yeah, I mean, he's slightly older than me.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And he shot Fruitvale Station when he was like 25, 26. Like so, he obviously had like a clear vision and had like a full goal that he was going for, and pursued that vision and goal. All the way till the end to where we are now. So
yeah, it's really interesting. I just heard an interview with Ryan Coogler that you told me you listened to too.
Hot 97, right?
Yeah, and he talked about kind of the making of Fruitvale Station. We're jumping into Fruitvale now, and he talked about how obviously it all takes. Every art form takes some sort of inspiration or demands some sort of inspiration. If you're going to make good art, it has to come from somewhere, right? It has to come from a place of sheer honesty and just truth and passion, right? And that's kind of what he felt as far as the Oscar Grant story. Hearing that from the Bay Area and hearing that from where he's from. And apparently his cousin did time with Oscar Grant, is what he said in the interview too.
Oh, okay.
Wow. So he had like a close, like he loved his cousin. He's like, oh, I love my cousin. So I immediately thought of him when I thought of Oscar Grant. And the fact that he was 22 years old. I mean, I talked to you about it last night a little bit, but I rewatched Fruitvale Station for this podcast. And it's one of those things where that thing, it still kills me, man. Yeah. It still kills me. Because I've seen the movie before, and I assume that it's going to, make me feel a certain way. But then I'm just like, I'm an emotional wreck watching that movie. Yeah. Because it's one of those things where it really, seeing that footage makes you mad. It really does make you mad, because it's one of those things where not only is it mistreatment, but then when they push him down, and then the guy, for literally no reason. Essentially, the movie's based on footage of a guy who was taken off a train.
The BART system that they have like up in the Bay Area.
In the Bay Area, and he was taken off, and he was pushed down to the side of the corner. And then when he was like trying to get up, they pushed him down, arrested him for no reason once again, and then they literally put his knee on the back of his head, on the back of his head, right? So pushing his face on the ground, and then one of the cops literally, everything was going fine. It was whatever, right? I mean, they were being asshole cops, but they weren't killing him. He just grabs his gun and shoots him for no reason, point blank shoots him, and then that's essentially what the movie is based off. So the movie takes place within a day of his life, which is the last day of his life,
right?
And it's on New Year's Day, which is funny enough, the birthday of his mother, and it takes place within that time frame. And what it does is it puts you in the shoes of this character, and it does it so well because when you learn about the character of Oscar Grant, you learn of his past as far as like he sells weed, right? He used to sell weed, and he did time for that. And then when you learn about that, he does it. Coogler, the reason why this movie is so good, and the reason why Coogler got Creed off this, and the reason why Coogler got so much recognition off this, in my opinion, is the way he structures the movie and the way you relate to a character. He introduces the character. He tells you who he is. He tells you he has a family. He tells you his past, but he tells you his present, and he tells you his mindset, and he tells you the kind of man this was. A young man who every moment of his day, every moment of his life, goes out of his way to be a good guy. I mean, you just have the scene in the grocery store where he's helping out the girl to do the cooking.
Yeah.
You have the scene with the dog where he feels bad and he wants to help the dog. You have the scene with when he's trying to sell the stack of weed that he has, but he chooses not to.
Yeah.
That takes, even I would have been like, yo, I gotta sell it.
I
would have been like, yo, I need the money though.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, man, I got a family.
This would have been my last time.
Yeah, I mean, this is my last time. I got a family, but he chose not to because he was just so, he remembered the disappointment in his mother's face when he was in prison and the troubles he faced when he did prison time, that he was just like, you know what, even if I'm going to not go without food for a minute, I'm not going to do it. So Coogler does such a great job of establishing who this guy is. Even the moment where he opens the door for the pregnant woman and he talks to the guy and says, you know, like, oh, who's this? Oh, who's your wife? Oh, she's cool, whatever.
Yeah.
Little moments like that is baller writing. I'm talking baller writing, where it's just so well done that you really do feel for the character and you see a human being and a man, and you don't see a rep sheet. You don't see did time doing blah 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 or did this blah 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 blah, got in a fight, cops shot him, whatever. You know what the right wing media would sell you, would tell you is that you see the man for who he was. You see the
humanity in this person.
It's amazing, man. And I know you have a lot of thoughts on the film, and I want to hear kind of what you think of why this movie's just so good.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is one of the to me personally is one of the best films in the last 10 years, one of the best films of the decade. And I think a large portion of that is due to both Ryan Coogler as a director, but also Michael B. Jordan as an actor, to kind of make this fully realized human being based on somebody who is a real life person, Oscar Grant. But, you know, there's a certain connection to the material in which you understand like the humanization you kind of mentioning before, how real and how genuine this person is, and when it leads up to his death, it becomes even more like impactful. And it, you know, this movie's so relevant. You know, the original event took place in 2009, so this was like before a lot of the big cases that we see like now popping up, and what led to like the big Black Lives Matter movement. But this is like when cell phones are just starting to like come up. So like this is one of the first like cell phone video like,
and the footage was super crappy because you're like, man, this was a different time.
yeah, exactly. But you know, now obviously this movie came out in 2013, so right after Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown was a big part of the news. And we keep seeing more and more cases continue. Tamir Rice, a lot of other cases. So this movie really came out like pretty much ahead of its time, and in the heat of the time. But it's even more relevant now that now we see it more and more, and we're actually advocating and fighting for changes in policing and the end of police brutality, which is something that African Americans have dealt with since 1960s, 1970s, but it's becoming more into the forefront now because so many people have access to footage and can put that out. I think having this story told, and particularly by Ryan Coogler, who's from the Bay Area, and he has like a passion and connection, like you said, his cousin had a personal relationship with Grant, so it was just fascinating how to see how they explored telling the story. I mean, I'm not 100% sure how much of it is accurate, how much of it is not accurate, but the fact that the story is told and is put in the forefront, and you got some, and you know what I mean? Like the fact that we have the recognition about it, and that the legacy of Oscar Grant can live on beyond just the tragedy. Now we have a movie that's celebrated and that celebrates his life and his triumphs, which I think was really special and unique. And particularly with, and it becomes more heartbreaking when you understand, like you said, you get the past, but you also get the present, and you see what he was aspiring to do in the future. Like he had goals, he had a kid, he had a girlfriend or a wife, and a family and a mother, and how all of those people just cared for him so much and cared to be around him, and how many people he helped along the way. So. Again, this movie it touches, and it touched a lot of people when it came out. It premiered at Sundance the year it came out.
It made waves at Sundance the year it came out. I know that.
Yeah. No, and it was one of the biggest releases out of Sundance, and I think it won like the special jury prize that year too. But yeah, but then it came out theatrically and wasn't like a big hit, but it definitely, like, amongst film critics and film scholars, and then started a path of Ryan Coogler winning a lot, like, First Time Filmmakers Award. If I'm not mistaken, he was nominated for the DGA that year for First Time Filmmaker because of Fruitvale Station. And a lot of people thought Michael B. Jordan was snubbed for the Oscar for best lead actor for Fruitvale Station as well. But yeah, it was just the movie made such an impact, I think, because of how thorough and how detailed it was in portraying the flaws and the humanity and the ups and downs of a human being, no matter if he's black, no matter if he's a drug dealer, no matter if he is a gangster, but he's doing the right thing, and he's trying to come up and do. And we're gonna talk about police brutality more when we do our Spike Lee episode too, particularly when we talk about do the right thing and whatnot. But
yeah,
it's just now this is kind of presents in like how the modern era sees it and how we have been enthralled in a lot of this too. So
yeah, it's one of those things that it's such a heartbreaking film, because by the time you're living a day in a life in this guy's shoes for such a long time throughout the movie, right? It doesn't turn away from him in any moment. It doesn't cut away. It doesn't say 3 days later, a week later. It just keeps going throughout his daily routine, throughout this specific day in his life. And you get to know, his girlfriend, his daughter.
That scene when he's racing his daughter, and like slow mo. That's like such a beautiful scene. You know what I mean? And
it's so well handled.
Yeah.
It's well handled because there's so many things that you can do to make that seem forced. Yeah. But it's just so natural. It feels natural. Even that, I gotta give credit to the little actress who plays the daughter. Yeah. Because she's great too. And that those moments of his daughter and his girlfriend. And his mom, his girlfriend's mom, like those are little natural moments of feeling the culture and the vibe of the Oakland people, right? Because you see even the shots of Oakland, even the the B-roll footage of the shots of Oakland, right? Of just the outside stuff and stuff. You feel the culture. You feel like there's so many Latino people there. There's so many Black people there. There's so many different cultures there that you feel like you're a part of it. And you feel like these people, like know what you're getting into. And what you get into is a normal, hardworking family who's just trying to, live their lives and have an opportunity to support their family. Yeah. And that's why, dude, all credit to Coogler for that, man, because that makes you feel so much. And jumping towards the end of the movie, when you have that scene, and I was telling you, because I was like, dude, I don't know what's wrong with me right now. I don't know if it's because I'm tired, but I'm an emotional wreck watching this movie. Yeah. And I've seen it before. I've seen it like a few years ago. But watching the scene where he gets shot, dude, when he turns around to the cop and when he shoots him, and when he turns around and he says, "You shot me, man. I got a daughter, man." And when he says that and his voice like cracks and is like bleeding, I was like, oh my God, that's so heartbreaking. Like that scene, and that's just that moment killed me. Like it killed me for some reason. I don't know if it's because I was hanging out with my nieces that day when I watched the movie. I was hanging out with them, so I recently, like, a daughter that's similar to that age. Right. And my brother has a daughter who's similar to that age, and I thought of them, and I thought of how awful that would be. Yeah. It kills you, man. It kills you. And then obviously when you have Octavia Spencer come in and give her performance of the mother, and kind of a grieving mother, it also murders you because you feel like how disgusting and awful that would feel, especially knowing that it came from a place of hate, right? It's different if you feel like it came from a place of an accident or something terrible that was out of their control. No, it came from a place of hate. It came from a place of just sheer murder, first-degree murder. Yeah. So I can't imagine the grief you would feel in that moment, and the terribleness you would feel in the hospital waiting for the results of the surgery, of what's going to happen to his life. So the way they lead up to that moment it is all leading up to a moment of just insane emotion. Like the way Ryan Coogler handles pacing and emotion in this movie is I think even better than his other two films in the sense of pacing and emotion. Yeah. Because it's just so well done and it makes you feel so much within a short time frame.
Well, I mean, he uses certain techniques that come in a lot of his other movies. I mentioned the slow motion before. You see that hints in Creed and hints in Black Panther. You see the long long takes being utilized. That whole scene with the dog where he like greets the dog and then the dog gets ran over. It's like a pretty like, I guess on the nose kind of metaphor for like foreshadowing what's going to happen towards the end, but it's also just, I mean,
I even got emotional in that scene. I thought of my dog, and I was like, no. I was going to cry for that dog.
But that's a long take, though. I mean,
it is.
Yeah, so
it's something that Coogler takes with all his other movies. I mean, you see them in all 3 films. Super long takes. Yeah. Super handheld. He loves handheld. Yeah. Like super handheld, not just like, you know, like
not like shoulder mount.
Exactly. No, I'm talking like straight like handheld. Like I'm trying to keep this camera from shaking so much because it's so handheld. He does that in a lot. He did it a lot in this movie too, and that makes you feel more personal and more attached, more natural.
So, and I mean, there's a lot of great moments like that too. So you definitely see like the establishing of like the skills that Ryan Coogler brings to each film, but you know, whereas in Creed is used for more of like an uplifting feel, for this is used more as like you said, like bringing characterization, like bringing a heart and emotion and level of detail to the person, the character of Oscar Grant in this film.
Yeah, and it really is like obviously I'm not from Oakland and he is, but it really is like he gives you that vibe of Oakland having the mixture of cultures in there, right? Especially during when the scene when they're on the train, you see all the different types of people there. You see the white people there, you see the Asians, you see Latinos that he hangs out with too, because his girl is Latina too. And that's another thing too, is the fact you have a black guy and a Latina girl both coming from different cultures, both kind of coming together and kind of embracing each other, to the most extent, right? To the point where they're just seamless, to the point where they just come together seamlessly. But even having his friends, like I noticed he had a Latino friend in there with a Latina girlfriend too. I don't know if rewatching the film you saw that too,
right.
And I noticed that too. Little things that I noticed when it comes to little cultural and racial things, showing how different people and different vibes come together, and they're all like, even in the scene where they're just all dancing on the train, it's just like at first you're like, what's going on? I don't know what's happening. Why is this important? But then you get why it's important, because it shows like Oakland having different solidarity and just progressiveness when it comes to that certain type of thing. And yet this still happens, and yet there's still this stigma, and there's still this kind of atrocity that would take place in a city that seems to be so ahead of its time when it comes to different cultures coming together. I mean, that to me is just impactful in general.
Well, another thing this movie touches on is the incarceration, right? Like how incarceration can make or break somebody's like, you know, stigma and like their interactivity with, you know, like, I mean, that's the whole reason why the fight breaks out on the train towards the end, is because like a prison gang, like, you know, opposition and all that kind of stuff. It's just crazy how, you know, they lock up, you know, people of color, brothers and sisters, to like keep them out of gangs. But really, the gang culture and prisons are a lot more stronger and a lot more destructive and dangerous than they are in the outside world. So they're just putting them in cages to make things worse. And the fact that homie gets, you know, locked up for drug dealing is stupid too. I mean, like
the fact that's the thing too, man. I noticed that too. I was like, the fact, really, for selling weed? Really?
This is, you know, to 09, you know, 09 was a different time than it is now. But it's still, I mean, like, even to, I mean, it's just stupid that that's a thing that keeps people down and like locked up for like the rest of their lives, and like can always and forever influences the decisions they have to make. I mean, the reason why he has a hard time finding another job is because he has a record, and because if the reason he has a record is because he got caught selling little weed. Which, if that was legal and it was regulated and it was taxed, it'll be a different situation, you know. But it's just, it's you know, that's just the system we live in, and it's kind of, and that's really what's amazing about Fruitvale Station, because it kind of demonstrates how much the system has felt this man all the way up until this point, leading up until his death, where the police system felt him as well. I mean, obviously, the cop claimed that, you know, he thought he pulled his taser when he pulled his gun.
Dude, really though? Yeah, like how can you? I don't buy that for a second.
Yeah,
I don't know if you buy that. I don't buy that for a second.
It's, you know, it's always been a problem with police, and I mean, that's how, you know, especially in California, in Oakland too. I mean, they have a long history of recruiting Southerners, former Southern soldiers and Army generals. In LA in particular is a big one with Police Sergeant Daryl Gates, whose objective was like literally to bring in like KKK members. And same thing in Oakland. Same thing was happening up in the north in the Bay Area. They were bringing in like literal.
I mean, that's where the LA riots came from. That's where
the Watts riots came from.
That's where the OJ stuff came from too, with the framing of the LA cops.
Yeah, Rodney King, and yeah, exactly. And that's, I mean, OJ is the example of like, we have to show that we're at least somewhat,
Yeah.
Which, bad example to pick.
It is
bad.
It is a bad example, but at the same time, it's one of those things where, dude, hearing his story, you realize that you're like, damn, that's such a crazy way for it to bite him in the butt, right?
Yeah.
All those times of sheer racism comes back, and it's like, I don't know. It's just it's a crazy moment, and it's a crazy time where. That took place, and the fact that it caused so much of an uproar is because of the cell phone footage, and it is because of the fact that you saw a cop shoot a guy point blank for 100% no reason. Yeah. And it kills you seeing that. It kills you. It really does. And the way he frames this movie and the way he tells this story, coming from an emotional perspective and coming from a cultural perspective, is absolutely impactful. Yeah. And it's super well done, and it's super well directed. Yeah.
Those upside down shots too, by the way, like when we see from like Oscar's perspective when he's on the ground, he sees like the paramedics or whatever coming to help him.
Oh
out.
Yeah.
It's just that's like a really interesting filmmaking technique to like kind of put like in the perspective of like being like close to death. That's the only thing you're seeing. That's your only help. But it's upside down. So it's really Coogler. That's why he's one of the masters working today, because he does so much in just visual storytelling, just from a shots level. It's just amazing to me. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Any last word that you want to get on?
Nah, man. This is one of like I said, one of the greatest movies in the past decade. I feel like, and I think it's definitely without a doubt the reason why we have Coogler today. And I think this is personal best, but then all three of these films have been on such different levels.
Yeah, man. I'm about to top your personal best, because we're moving on to Creed.
Oh, Creed.
And to be honest, man, Creed is what you just said about Fruitvale. I love Fruitvale. Like, I really do feel like it's probably the most emotional one and the most emotionally impactful one. Yeah. But the one as far as like my personal like favorites of the last like 10 years, if not more, man, this is probably one of my all-time favorite movies. I put this as my 2015 favorite movie of the year when we did that top 10 movie of the year list with JT and Copster and Cody. And I put this as my number one because I really did feel like this movie was on another level. This movie was crazy. And the fact that it's taking the Rocky story and it's moving it in a direction where you feel like there's nowhere else you can go with the Rocky story. And you feel like it's almost, even if you try to do something more with the Rocky story, it's forced. It's pushed. It's not natural.
I mean, Rocky Balboa kind of felt like the end to like what we thought is like Rocky stories.
Yeah, because Rocky Balboa was Old Man Rocky, right? So that's why this one, it gave the opportunity and gave the chance to tell a different story and make a true spin-off movie that felt so natural, and it felt like on the right course. And the way Ryan tells this story is such a creative way, and it's such an impactful way. So essentially, it's about Apollo's son, Apollo Creed's son, which is Adonis Creed, played by Michael B. Jordan. And we have that Michael B. Jordan Ryan Coogler relationship that it started to develop in Fruitvale, come to fruition in Creed, where he plays the lead role of Apollo's son. And what it is now is that it's the affair that he had with another woman. His kid was Adonis Creed, and then his wife adopts him and takes him in, and that to me is even that in itself is just, I mean, the fact that not only is this woman comfortable enough to accept that his husband cheated on her, but the fact that you can take the child of the woman that she cheated on and take it as your own, and literally as your own, like that's your son now. That in itself is already a powerful message, and that's 10 minutes in the movie.
And then it's another big theme of incarceration again, kind of carrying on from the Fruitvale Station. I mean, it takes place. I mean, the opening of the film takes place in a child detention center, in a juvenile detention center. And I mean, look at the conditions those kids are put in. It's like a military prison, almost, and they're fighting. And that's why Adonis becomes a fighter, is because of those conditions that he's put in. He's locked up. He has nowhere else to go. So, and it's funny because, a lot of times when you think of this movie, is a lot of people associate like the privilege fighting, but when you really look at the core of the foundation of this character of Adonis, even though he comes from a place of privilege later on in life, and because he's adopted by the Creed family, before he was in jail fighting for his life. He always had that fighter's mentality. So, and, it's kind of like it's like the duality to the underdog story. It's like the underdog from the sense of coming from like the literal bottom and building up, and then coming back down to fight your way back up again. So it's like it's a lot of different levels to this film, and they established that right off top. So it's fantastic.
Dude, it's crazy because I'm a big boxing fan, and I'm a big fan of fighting and fight sports in general. I mean, obviously MMA is probably my favorite, but I still love boxing, and I keep up with boxing, and I know boxing pretty well. And this is like a true boxer's
boxing movie,
in a boxing story, because like you said, when you think about boxing, and they say it like 5 times in this movie, so it's obviously not a secret, but when you think about boxing, you think about lower class people. Like it's more like it's a sport that targets more of a lower class type of people. Like even in the beginning, the first trainer that Adonis talks to, he's like, dude, these are people who are fighting for their lives, literally, because this is all they got, because they got no money. And you're coming from money, and you're coming from a good job. Right. He's got like an office job, like an accounting job, I think is what it is. Right. Because he says counting numbers in one scene. So he doesn't have the necessity to fight. He's not in that position of coming from a poorer background and having the necessity to go into boxing. I mean, if you watch the Rocky movie, that's essentially what it is too. That's what the original Rocky is a suit. He doesn't even know how to, he barely knows how to talk or read because he's just so uneducated, and he comes from that background. Yeah. And he's that poor Philly kid who wants to, box because he loves it so much, because it's part of his passion and his soul. And here comes Adonis, which it isn't something that he needs to do, but it's something that's in his blood, literally. Yeah. And sometimes there's things that's literally inside of your heritage and your family heritage that you just feel so much, and it just bubbles to the surface. Like that scene when he's boxing with his dad on the projector. Yeah,
exactly. I was just gonna bring up that scene. Yeah. It's like, that's such a great visual representation of what this movie's about, because he's both like living in the shadow of his father through the projector, like, just from the light, the shadow. He's literally living in his father's shadow, but he's also shadow boxing his father in that scene. He's playing the part of Rocky going up against his dad. He's fighting his own legacy, and I think that's just prime filmmaking right there.
Yeah. So essentially, when he wants to, his mission, his goal now is to give up his life and to move to Philadelphia to seek out Rocky, so he can get trained by Rocky
and make a name for his own.
Make a name for his own. But I still like that he went specifically to Philadelphia. He's like, all right, I got a plan. Yeah. I'm gonna go to Philly. I'm gonna surprise Rocky, and I'm gonna ask him to train me, and he's gonna train me. Yeah. And then when he gets there, he realizes it's a lot harder than he thought it was. Yeah. But at the same time, if you think about it, he completed his mission, man. Yeah. I mean, the fact that it's one of those things where it's a 1 in a million shot of getting a retired old man to train a younger guy. But the fact that he's Apollo Creed's son, and the fact that Rocky owes one to Apollo that he never got to pay back, this is kind of like his like, all right, I couldn't pay you back because you died in the ring. Yeah. But I'm paying you back in the way of your heritage, of your son, of your future, of your legacy, kind of. So Rocky in a way is like giving one up, or giving a favor to Apollo, his friend, by helping his son become a boxer and kind of fulfilling his dream. And that's where he gets into the boxing gym and starts learning because there's one scene that I didn't really capture when I first saw the movie in theaters, where he says I'm self-taught. Yeah. I literally just didn't notice that when I first time saw the movie. I didn't know he was self-taught, but he's apparently self-taught. Yeah. No one trained him before because no one wanted to train him. Yeah. I didn't catch that the first time. Yeah. So the fact that he's self-taught, he's good. He's just a natural. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Well, same way Rocky is in the original.
Exactly. Yeah. So when he gets, actually expert training of an expert boxer, of a legend, he becomes bigger than what he was before in the sense of how good he is as a boxer.
Right.
So in that sense, in general, is just great. And obviously, we have Tessa Thompson come in this movie too, who plays a major role because she's playing the role of like the female lead or the co-lead. Yeah. And Tessa Thompson, man, I can't say enough about her. This was probably the movie that gave me the introduction. I know you knew her from Dear White People.
Dear White People.
I didn't, because I didn't see that movie till like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So this was the first time I saw Tessa Thompson, and I was I fell in love right away.
Yeah.
But for me, I think she's great in this movie, and I think she offers a good female co-lead protagonist role, a very modern female lead. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like she's definitely not Adrian coming from the old one.
Yeah.
No offense to Adrian, she's great.
Adrian, come on, man. You can offend Adrian all you want. Like, she literally plays like I'm like
it's pretty old timey.
Yeah.
It's of its time, RB3.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. This is this movie came out in 2015. It's very much a modern version of what an actual relationship would be like, kind of thing. Yeah. So why are you laughing?
No, it's just like I can't stop the Adrian. Yeah. Like, she literally doesn't say like much of anything in that book. It's just like that's my thing with the original Rocky. Is just like the way they have. I mean, Rocky is like dumb as bricks, so they have to have somebody just like barely slightly smarter than them to like be the co-lead. Man, like she can't be too smart because she's a woman, but like she has to break out of her own shell. It's just crazy to me, man. The
rewatching that movie is pretty funny. If you have you seen the first Rocky? In the movie?
We just watched it in our one of our film classes, race, class, and gender in American film. And that's one of the,
when you have Paulie be like, "Get out of my house,
get
pregnant,
you're a broken woman." Like, what the fuck?
It's
it's
funny.
1976. But it's kind of funny too, and we kind of alluded to it before, but like how Rocky in the original is like this really poor, uneducated white dude, but Adonis is an educated brother, and he's an African American. And the whole thing of Rocky being the broke, poor, uneducated white guy versus the smart, educated Apollo Creed, who, like I mentioned in the previous Black History or Black Cinema episode, where Apollo kind of represents more of like the Muhammad Ali's of like that time and that era, but seeing that brought on to the next generation with Creed, but having like totally subverted the expectations now. Instead of the white poor guy being the protagonist, now is the black educated young man, but he still has to go on the same journey. And it's basically, it's essentially saying it's the same. Boxing, no matter what background you come from, you still have to start from the bottom. It's still going to be an underdog story, and it's going to be, you're going to be put on like equal, kind of not equal footing, but like you have to fight for yourself more than more than like anything else. So it's the same kind of journey, no matter what kind of background you come from. So it's pretty interesting how they address that.
Yeah,
in a lot of different ways. But Tessa Thompson in this movie, she plays Bianca, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Bianca.
Yeah, and she has her own kind of story in her own journey because she's
progressive hearing loss.
Progressive hearing loss. Yeah, exactly. And she has to wear a hearing aid and all that, which is, I don't know if I'm coming off like as offensive here, but Adrian in the original movie is essentially, she's like mentally disabled. But like,
I'm offended.
No offense to the Adrians out there, but in that film she's she's kind of mentally disabled. But in Bianca's story, she's like actually physically disabled. She can't, she's losing her hearing, and she is probably eventually going to go deaf. But the fact that they, that's another layer of like social commentary too, is like how you're dealing with a person's disability, even and how you're going to jump into a relationship knowing that she's going to be deaf one day. So she makes music to enjoy the time that she has with her ears, and pursues that same way that boxing is a physical sport as well. That boxing is something you train for and that you use your body for, that can go away at some time later on in the future. Same way with the progressive hearing loss, you're going to lose your hearing, so she might as well enjoy what she's going to lose.
It's always such a big portion of what a boxing film can be and what a boxing story in real life is when it comes to relationships. Because ask anyone who's in a relationship with a boxer, it's gnarly. Yeah. When you know that your husband or that your significant other is getting continuously beat in the head.
Yeah.
And you know dude, that'll screw you up.
Yeah.
Like I'm telling you, I love boxing, but it's a sport that when you get into it, it's a whole different level. You know that you're going to lose brain cells. You know that you're going to have, issues when you get older, and you still do it, right?
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where it's crazy. Like, the kind of physical relationship you're gonna get into is like, all right, if I'm getting into a relationship with a boxer, I better get ready to see my boyfriend get beat the crap out of him.
Make your way like wipe their ass because like they're not like gonna like.
When she says that line in the movie, that's a real line, bro. Like I'm telling you, when she's like, he's bleeding, and I'm like, all right, whatever, it's blood. You gotta wipe you gotta wipe his ass. I'm like, all right. That's dark shit. That's dark. That's dark
shit. I'm never dating a boxer, man.
Like that's some heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Like it really makes you feel like, man, that's heavy, man. I don't know if I could do that. Because it really is like one of those things where you gotta know what you're getting into, and it's one of those things that some people lose relationships off that. For real. Like if you're gonna,
you have to be really committed to being with a boxer, if I doubt.
Absolutely. And let's talk about a little bit about the way we talked about it in Proof there, but the way this movie is shot. It's really famous for it's the one take boxing shot that's in the second fight of the movie, where he fights Leo. I forget his name in real life, or if that is his name in real life, but where he fights that guy, it's all one shot and one take, which is super interesting because you have the camera operator literally going in, going out, walking around with the camera and trying to follow the action of the fight. And that scene in general, that boxing scene, is just so well regarded in this movie that you could even remember that as like some people's favorite moment in the movie.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's probably one of my favorite moments. And, it's interesting. We've had this long legacy of boxing films being told throughout cinema. We have, like, Raging Bull. We have Rocky. We have all these different scenes. And, the way Rocky is kind of shot is from the perspective outside of the ring for most of the time. The way Raging Bull is shot is from the perspective inside of the ring. But Creed actually brings like a new kind of language to it where the camera's like literally in between the boxers and going back and forth. Cinderella Man did something similar, but Cinderella Man was more from like different POVs. So it was like the POV of like the boxer that Russell Crowe is facing and vice versa. This movie actually puts the camera right in the middle and like really, really engages and makes you feel like you're inside of that fight. And it's funny, when I first watched it, I didn't even notice it was a long take for like a little bit. Like 2 minutes in, I'm like, whoa, is this still like, has we not cut yet? Yeah. And then it just keeps going. It's super impressive.
Some of my favorite moments in that one take is when the camera goes towards Rocky and Tessa. Yeah. And then it goes back out towards Michael. And then it goes back out towards the boxer he's facing in his corner. And then it goes back to Rocky, and then it goes back. It's crazy. It's just gnarly, dude. It's just one of those things where you're like, damn, this is why this guy is going to be famous. Ryan Coogler, I mean. Yeah. Where it's like using this kind of creativity obviously credit to his DP, but using this kind of creativity is just crazy for a boxing movie because it's so genuinely creative. It's like, this is how I'm going to shoot this fight. I'm going to shoot it in a way that no one has seen this type of boxing before. Right. And it's just so well done. And the boxing too, I mean, he talks about it in the behind the scenes where he had a great choreographer and he worked with real boxers, like actual working professionals who are currently in the business of boxing and stuff like that, to be a part of the training, to be a part of the choreography of the boxing, because that's so important. Right. And apparently, like, that's the one thing that Sylvester Stallone wanted the most was genuine boxing and was to be a part of that the most. And that's the thing that he had the most input in, apparently, is what Ryan said. Ryan said that the thing that Sylvester Stallone wanted the most and wanted the most input in was the actual fighting, was the boxing. Yeah. So that, to me, like, when you do a boxing movie, you got to do it right, man. You got to do it right.
You have to.
Yeah.
And not even to go without mentioning Sylvester Stallone in this movie. He plays an older version of the Rocky character that we've become so familiar with. And, throughout the entire film, we see him dealing with and trying to reason with the notions of being older and being, these are similar things that we saw in like Rocky Balboa, but it's definitely expressed now. The retired boxer, we see like Paulie's dad, Adrian's dad. We saw that we lost Adrian in the
Rocky Balboa.
But now we see Paulie's dad, so he's like literally on his own. So Adonis coming in and being like the fosterer and like the last like living connection to his old boxing legacy, and carrying that onwards.
And almost like his father figure at that point. There's a moment
Right.
in the scene, there's a moment in the movie where you realize, like, oh, I get it. That's like, he's representing his father at a moment.
Right.
He's representing kind of like the father figure that he didn't have in his life.
Right. I mean, that's why he always hated Adonis, and that's why he hates being called a Creed throughout the entire movie. And there's that great scene where he's confronted by like the rapper, and he's like, "Baby Creed, Baby Creed," and, like, that's not my name, and he breaks out into a fight because of that. I mean, that's, he's fighting his whole legacy, but I think that's a great like end point at the end of the film. Where he has that line. I forget exactly what the line was, but he has that whole thing of like, I'm doing this. Not for like the fame, the recognition. I'm doing this for myself, for my that's just a really great, and especially we talk about in the Black Cinema episode, fatherhood and Black communities and Black cinema is really crucial and important. And that movie and this film addresses that head on, and having Rocky be like almost like the adopted father of Adonis and playing that role. Only makes it harder when we understand that like Rocky's actually sick and he has like a diagnosis for cancer and all that stuff, and that's why Adonis like pushes him and pursues him to like get better and get
because Adonis sees it as like Rocky giving up on his life is like giving up on him, and he feels betrayed by that. Where he's like, wait a minute, if you give up on yourself, you're giving up on me too. It's not just about you anymore. Because Rocky has for the last portion of his last 10 years, he's been dealing with just him. His son has a wife, has kids, is doing his own thing up in Canada. And he's kind of just been like living his own life, kind of waiting to die in a way. Right. Because he's just so old at a point where he's just like, dude, I have cancer. I'm good. I'm just going to die. I just want to die. I'm at a point now where I want to. So Adonis pushes back and says, hey man, you actually have someone to fight for now, a son, and that's me. I'm kind of the one you have to fight for now. It's not just about you anymore.
Right.
And that's kind of like when an older man has to come to terms with. An older legend, right? Where he has to come to terms with like, I lived my good years, I'm good, now I can go. But it's not his time yet, is what the movie's about too. So that in itself is really powerful as well. I have to talk about the unspoken, the unmentioned MVP of this movie and of Black Panther, and that someone who hasn't been mentioned as much as before, that I feel like deserves to be mentioned, and that is the master musician known as Ludwig.
Ludwig, I can't pronounce his last name.
Ludwig something, but this score in this movie is baller. So good. It's the perfect combination of the traditional Rocky movie and a modern take on that, a modern upbringing of it, a modern Philly hip hop feel of Rocky music, of Rocky scores. And Ludwig does an amazing job of that. And Ludwig, for anyone who doesn't know, is also the producer of Childish Gambino, Donald Glover. He produces all his music since like mixtape times. Since he did Awaken My Love, he did Because the Internet, he did Camp, he did pretty much everything Childish Gambino has done. Ludwig has been his producer, and this guy is a master producer, master musician. And Childish even mentions him in a few of his songs. He mentions him in Bonfire. He's like, I put in work, ask Ludwig. Like when you hear that, you're like, what the heck is Ludwig? But then you realize that's the name of his producer. And that guy, dude, I'm telling you, this score pops. Like it pops out.
Well, the whole scene where we have like a number of different training sequences in this movie, but then like that great scene where he's like running and like the bikes are behind him.
That scene like, kills me. It kills me. I saw that in theaters. I was getting chills.
I
chills,
still
fam.
Get chills. When I watch that.
I got chills when I saw it too last night. I literally get chills when I see that scene because it makes me feel like, I gotta do something. Like it's just so inspiring.
And plus the song they incorporate too with the Meek Mill.
Meek Mill. That's another guy. Meek Mill is like throughout this whole movie. He has like 4 songs in this movie.
I mean, that's the Philly rapper right
He's
there.
the Philly rapper.
Like the Philly king. The music is incredible, and then especially in the last fight when like that Rocky theme punches in like right at that moment. Just even I'm talking about it. I'm getting chills like right now. Like man, everything.
But that scene where I'm telling you, man, that scene where he's going right at the camera, it's in the trailer too. And he's just like, and then Meek Mill's just like crescendoing. And then it just goes slow motion for him, and he goes,
It's like
and he's screaming, and I'm just like, oh, I need to work out.
No, that's amazing.
And then he's even when the bikes are circling him, and then the music is building up to the finale. And he looks to Rocky, and he's just like, let's go, and then the music's just going. I'm just like, dude, this is a genius movie.
Rocky's up there.
This is a GOAT movie, dude. And he's like pointing to him.
And you know, I think in any other movie that would have been the cheesiest, like worst scene like ever.
In this movie, it's like one of the best scenes I've ever seen in any movie, man. I'm not even kidding. I've rewatched that scene before I've like gone out on runs. And before I've like done races before. Because it's just so damn inspiring that I'm like, yo, if Adonis can do this, I can do it. And I'm like running. Because it's so good. And the score is like half of that. I mean, obviously the shots and the choreography, but the score that Ludwig does in this movie is just so freaking good that I feel like it deserves so much more credit than he actually gets. Because he's kind amazing. I mean, you barely hear the guy talk. He's a very, he's not a well-known composer. He's not a Zimmer. He's not, a well-known kind of composer that's on the come up. He's just a guy that you don't hear too much about. And I feel like, especially with Coogler's movies, he deserves so much credit.
I mean, we talked about a little bit last week with the Black Panther soundtrack, but then there's also a great video on like Genius.
Genius, if you don't know Genius, the YouTube channel, you'll find Ludwig doing some dope shit. Like he does. Go ahead and finish your statement.
Oh no,
I'm just saying.
They just put out a new video. Genius does like this whole series where he talked to producers about the making of songs. But then they did a recent video that was, I guess, sponsored by Disney about like the creation of Wakanda, like the whole score of that, and Black Panther, and it's just amazing hearing him talk and speak about all the different. I mean, we're going to talk about Black Panther in a little bit. But even a lot of those principles of applying the home instrumentations and the home sounds of Wakanda from like African culture. That's the same way with this and like Philly music, and you feel like a lot of Philly hip hop scene is really well infused into this movie, into the Philly music in general. And I think that's what's really great. I mean, Ryan Coogler is so good at establishing so many different worlds and places, even if he's not. I mean, the original, Fruitvale Station takes place in Oakland, obviously where he's from, the Bay Area. But then this takes place in Philly, and it just locks down the Philly feel up and down all the way through and through. So
I was literally gonna jump into that. That was actually in my notes. This movie is so Philly. Like it feels so Philadelphia to like every street corner, to the music, to the feel, to the culture, to the food, to like.
Well, even that scene with Bianca.
Even the scene with Bianca,
and
Michael B. Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan are having like the cheesesteaks, and like she's giving them like all the Philly slang, like a John, all that kind of stuff. Like
it's such a Ryan Coogler is such a great job of establishing. If I'm gonna do a movie that takes place anywhere, I need to focus on where it is. I need to hone in on what it feels like, what it tastes like, what it smells like, what it sounds like to be within that city or world or country, or even if it's real or fictional, like we get into Wakanda. How is it to live in Wakanda, to be in Wakanda, kind of thing. But obviously, let's finish up on Creed, because to me, man, what stands out the most to this movie is that it's just it's a true complete movie. It's a movie that you feel like it's a legacy movie within the Rocky franchise and with Apollo Creed, but at the same time, it has all the beats that you need, and yet completely original, and yet completely modern, and yet completely classic at the same time. It's just, it's so phenomenal. It's literally one of my all-time favorites, movies of all time. And also, I got to give a shout out to my homie Max Kellerman, who's in this movie.
Oh, really?
My boy Max Kellerman, boxing announcer Max Kellerman.
Oh, right. Yeah.
He's obviously, I'm just being a dumb sports fan, but Max Kellerman's my homie, dude. And when I see him in this movie and he's like calling the fight, and he's like, Adonis Creed and the son, I'm just like, yo, that's my boy. Max Kellerman from First Take. Shout out to ESPN, man. But this movie feels like a true boxing movie, and having those announcers and having those people and having the final fight too. We didn't really talk about the final fight, but the scene where he gets knocked out, and you think he's out, and
it's like the little flashbacks,
and he has those flashbacks,
yeah,
bro, that got me, man.
That still gets me. And then like the last one is just like that shot of like Apollo like, you know, from the old.
That's what I was
movie.
thinking too, because I rewatched this movie and I was watching every image that came up. He thought of, all right, Bianca, all right, Rocky, all right, me as a kid, all right, my mama, and then when he goes, my dad, he just immediately is like,
man.
He gets up right away. He's like, oh, when it comes to my dad, I'm getting my ass up, dude. Like that to me was just like, again, chills, dude, chills.
So powerful, and it's another technique that Johnson uses. I mean, thinking about Ryan Johnson, Ryan Coogler. It's another technique that Ryan Coogler uses in his films is like flashing back and like re-looking at the past, like, and that influences the future. And we're gonna talk about that with Black Panther and spoiler in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, to me, Creed has a lot of great moments like that. Just the use of editing, the use of camera. I mean, the scenes where he's like knocked out and the camera's like vertical in the same kind of way it was in like in Fruitvale Station. Like it's it's just like really, really impactful too. Because you really get that POV. It kind of makes fun of like the modernization of boxing with like the HBO Sports like thing.
Dude, that HBO Sports promo looked so real. Yeah. As someone who watches that, I watched all the HBO Sports stuff. Like I saw the Canelo and Triple G one. Yeah. And I watch it all the time. It looks so real. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. Where he's like, yo man, I'm just training my whole life for this, man. And then it shows him running and it's like, yeah, that's what an HBO Sports promo looks like.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I was watching Creed again yesterday with somebody and like they were like and like the HBO Sports thing came up. It was like, whoa, did they just cut to a commercial like halfway? No, I was like, no, that's the actual film.
They shot it for the movie.
Yeah. It looks so good. And then plus like the little title cards that will come up right before the boxer comes out was really amazing.
Dude.
Like,
I forgot about that. Yeah. Because I forget someone who said they didn't like that. I love that.
Yeah, I think JT and like Oral Finstock, or one of those
guys
they had a real problem with that.
They said they didn't like that. Yeah. I love that. I love when it said freeze frame and it goes ding 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 and it shows them what they are, their record, their nickname, what their fighting style is. Yeah. I was like, that is what Suicide Squad tried to do. Yeah. And this one did it 10 times better. Yeah. And this one did it in a natural way.
They're like very authentic.
And it felt so cool. It felt so modern and felt so youthful. Like I felt like, man, that's something I would do in a movie where I would just be like, this guy, like, who's this guy? And then you want to know who this guy is? Yeah. Freeze frame. This guy's a badass.
It's like perfect way to give out the information. No need for like the exposition, like all that. Yeah. A lot of great filmmaking here, man. And I think it's kind of funny how it like subverts like a lot of the traditional Rocky tropes. We talk about training. There's like literally a training sequence where like Rocky's like in the hospital, like trying to get better. I think that's really funny and really like a really smart way to like subvert our expectations. So everything it does, it kind of like parodies the traditional Rocky format and the traditional like boxing media sports, but also like celebrates it in a really like genuine and fun way, and and celebrates the legacy of Rocky in general. And Ryan Coogler is a giant Rocky fan.
He is,
and just answering the question at the end of Rocky 3 was nice too. Like how at the end of Rocky 3 there was that whole thing of like who wins Apollo or Rocky. It's nice that we got.
Oh yeah, we did get an answer. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Spoiler alert: Apollo wins.
Apollo wins.
Let's jump over to Black Panther, because Black Panther is a movie that
spoiler time.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about spoilers, guys. So if you haven't seen it, but we're assuming you have, just because it's on a Tuesday. And this is, it's been some time since the movie came out now.
It already made more than Justice League.
Dude, right? This movie made $192 million opening weekend. It's the 5th largest opening. So far, it's more than Age of Ultron. It's more than Civil War. Yeah. The only Marvel movie that tops it is the first Avengers movie, which made $207 million opening weekend. This, I mean, I'm a numbers guy. I'm a big box office numbers guy. This thing murdered at the box office. Yeah, like it went above and beyond expectations to the point that it's just like people were saying 150 was crazy. You said 160. I agree with your 160. Yeah, it just destroyed your 160, bro.
I'm not gonna lie. When I was first putting that tweet together, I was originally gonna put 180. I was like, oh man, maybe 180 is stretching it. You know what I mean? I should have went with 180. 180 is still low balling.
It's still low, man. On Friday, my friend asked me, he's like, "What do you think?" I said 185. Yeah, because I was really feeling it. Yeah, 192 is way more than 185.
Jesus, it's just crazy that this movie. And we knew like the kind of touch that this movie was going to have to people. Yeah. Just off the fact that it's like representation is finally like a big budget, minority led, black led superhero movie was going to drive everybody to theaters. Coming out in the peak of Black History Month, so all like the BSUs, the BSAs, We're gonna go out. A bunch of school kids are gonna go take trips to it. I mean, I'm hearing stories like Kendrick Lamar sending 1,000 kids from Compton to see it.
I heard Octavia Spencer was doing something.
Yeah,
too.
buying out theaters. The game does that a lot. The game buys out a lot of theaters in LA and like takes a bunch of kids to that too. He did that with Get Out, and he did that with a lot of other films. Chance the Rapper is doing a thing like, and it's all contributing to the box office, and it's all making like the cultural relevance float up to the top more and more. And when you get the surge of Twitter behind you, like the surge of like social media, like finally pushing like a film like this all the way up to the top to the next level is
But if you really think about it, I was talking to my brother about it last night, because he hadn't seen the movie. He was watching it today, and by today I mean over the weekend. And he was saying that it's crazy how certain expectations from the studio and certain expectations from producers is a certain way when it comes to box office.
Yeah.
When you give a movie an all-black cast, an all-black movie, and Black Panther, and make it all about that, you expect a certain amount of people to go out and see it, and you expect a certain portion of the population to go out and see this movie. You expect black people are going to love this movie. That's cool. It'll probably make $100 million.
Yeah.
What you got instead was everyone going out and seeing this movie, everyone going out and celebrating this movie, and this movie possibly gonna be making more money than the most pivotal Marvel movie that we're gonna get this year, and that's Avengers: Infinity War.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a huge possibility that Black Panther is gonna make more than the biggest Marvel movie we've ever had, which is Avengers: Infinity War. The fact that this was marketed as go see a black movie. No, bro, this ain't no black movie. This is more. Yeah. This is like one of the biggest movies of all time. And that's insane, dude. That's insane. Yeah, so that to me is just wild within itself. But let's get into our first initial thoughts of the movie. I mean, obviously we're going to talk about spoilers, and I want to get into specifics. But overall, what did you think of the movie, man?
I loved it, man. I loved it. I remember seeing it at the premiere and texting you like pretty much after, like, man, this is dope. It's amazing. I think it's one of the finest Marvel pictures probably of all. And you know, leaving it initially, I loved it, but when I wasn't like as high as it, like everybody else. I kind of told you privately, I did like my ranking of it. Which you were like a little shocked by, but actually like now
I was like, what?
You're a little shocked by like where I was like, like ranking it a little bit. But then but the more I sat on it, the more I watched it and I saw it again over the weekend, and I kind of it ranks higher and higher every time I think about it. More and more I think about it because it's just such an adventurous and explorative movie with a lot of layers, a lot of detail, a lot of political implications, which is like perfect for our podcast, of course. And it's just it has so much to say in the real world, but also in the Marvel Cinematic Universe too. It's just great, and I think this is one of their best solo movies, and I think it's probably one of the most culturally important. The most culturally important superhero movie we've seen to this day.
I said it's one of the most different Marvel movies that we've gotten before. It doesn't follow the Marvel formula to a T. It really doesn't. Because the Marvel formula, you might disagree with me, but I really do feel like the Marvel formula is comedy, action, joke, action scene. Really funny joke, action scene. Really funny joke, action scene. Story, action. This one I feel like it's more story. One joke here. Story, action scene. Story. It's more buildup of the story. It's more explaining of the world. It's more, someone said it on YouTube, I forget who. It's more of a thinking man's superhero movie. It makes you think more than it makes you feel. Like, especially following up something like Thor, which Thor I still consider to be one of the best Marvel movies. And I still feel like I like Thor more. But Thor has a different feel, has a different vibe, has a different energy. This one is more of a much more subdued, much more thinking man's, much more a commentary, much more. It's trying to tell you a story to the fullest extent, and it has characters and pieces within those characters to tell that story.
Yeah, there's so much story here. You could almost split each act up into like its own individual movie and still like have like an impactful, like meaningful thing. But it like this could almost be like a whole trilogy within itself. But the storytelling is so effective and efficient that it really guides and navigates this really cool, toes like a really great line of being both fast-paced and high energy, but also taking his time with certain moments and taking his time with understanding a lot of these different characters and a lot of the aspects and elements that contributes to each motivation. I mean, every character in this movie has like their own individual like arc and story and perspective, and
That's
I think
so
that's
true.
really awesome that, you know, somebody like Coogler put that much detail in the attention of making that kind of story. So
Yeah, it's crazy because walking into this movie, the movie starts obviously, and they're kind of explaining what Wakanda is and where it comes from and what kind of, you know, the vibranium and all that stuff and what makes Wakanda so great. And then it's crazy, man, because I'm watching this movie, right? And I'm thinking, all right, this is cool. They're explaining it to me. I don't know Black Panther that well. I know comics, but I don't know. If I'm being honest, I don't know Black Panther that well. I don't know the history of it too much.
Yeah.
And they're explaining it, and they're like, yeah, so Wakanda is a great country and all that. And then I'm like, I literally like 10, 15 minutes into the movie, when they're going into Wakanda and they're flying around in their spaceship, the first thing that came into my head, I was like, wait a minute. Wait a minute, y'all in Africa, and y'all this filthy rich, and so wait a minute, this feels wrong. It just felt wrong for me. Like they're just like, yo, we're badass, we got all these flying ships and shit, and I'm like, yo, but y'all in Africa though. I mean, and then immediately I'm so glad the movie addresses it. The whole movie's about that, and I'm like, oh, thank God, because if this was gonna be awkward for me, because I felt like that's kind of messed up. That they're like these filthy rich guys, like, well, I mean, super advanced.
That's how a lot of Africa really is, and a lot of like South Africa, a lot of Kenya, a lot of I mean, the way media portrays Africa is like this,
no, I agree. There is a lot of really rich.
There's
areas.
a lot of like rich
South Africa. There's a lot of rich areas in South Africa. That's very true.
But I don't know if did you hear about Cape Town?
No,
they were about to run out of water.
Oh yeah, I did hear about that.
Yeah. Damn, man, that's crazy.
But anyways, I really like that this movie was like, Wakanda's this crazy, super rich, technologically advanced society and country. And they've chosen to keep that a secret, and they've chosen not to share their success. And immediately, as soon as they said that, I was like, why though? That's messed up. But thankfully, the whole movie is about that. The whole movie is about, I like T'Challa's conversations with Daniel Kaluuya's character, where he talks about bringing in people is dangerous, you know, bringing in different cultures, or even Lupita Nyong'o's character, Nakia, talking about how, you know, we should share our wealth. We have way too much to just keep it to one country. This is way too much of a precious mineral, vibranium, whatever it is. It's precious metal that we have. We have to share this wealth. We have an obligation to do that as a people, right? And it's such a true concept. And the fact that the sins of the past kings and the past Black Panthers and the past T'Challas ahead of him, behind him, chose to keep it a secret, or kind of catching up with him. All the sins of the past Black Panthers, the sins meaning to keep it a secret and to keep it away from the rest of the world, has come back to literally bite him in the butt in the form of Killmonger.
And well, plus, I mean, the literal legacy of his father, you know, it is what created, like literally created the killing of Sterling K. Brown's character in the beginning of the movie. Is that's like the literal foundation of what, and you know, that's the secret, and that's, you know, and that's another great thing, you know, it's another continuation from the storyline of Creed, living within your father's legacy. And that's something that, you know, Black Panther is trying to, instead of like Creed learning to embrace it, in this movie, it's about Creed, it's about T'Challa, the Black Panther, kind of building off of his legacy and kind of freeing himself from the ideas of the previous Black Panthers, and creating his own legacy as a king. And I think that's like a really powerful way of going about it. I think particularly, you know, you address like how, you know, the wealth is shared with other countries. I mean, that's also a big part of I think the movie's perspective of like how African nations are frankly like dirt rich even to this day, but not really associating the wealth to like modern countries. And then, you know, there's that whole debate now of whether or not interventionism in other regions is a good idea or a bad idea. And, you know, a lot of times, you know, particularly in talking about with America having like American intervention, how that's a lot of times it's turned out worse than it has turned out better, but we don't have the same kind of resources with Wakanda. So it's like it's a different, interesting argument that I'm glad to see a superhero movie.
It's a very interesting argument, but I love superhero movies that put their world and their scenario into a real world scenario. If there really was a Wakanda, and if vibranium really was that powerful, and it really was literally next level, literally 200 years in the future kind of technology, that's the kind of stuff that there's no way you can keep that away from the rest of the world when the rest of the world is suffering to the point that it is suffering nowadays. And I love that movie does that, because it says, all right, this is vibranium, this is what it does, and this is Wakanda, and this is what it is. And it's so filthy powerful and so filthy rich that at that point it's like, really, man, you have an obligation to, as a human being, to help out.
And that's what, you know, and Lupita Nyong'o's character argues that too, T'Challa, early on in the film. But then, you know, Killmonger coming in and kind of highlighting and exposing the truth behind the Black Panther throne, the kingdom of Wakanda, and how flawed and messed up that is, really influences T'Challa to make some tough choices.
It is, and it's almost to the point where I kept thinking about it this morning as I was getting ready to do this podcast. I kept thinking about Killmonger, and almost to the point of like what Killmonger is kind of makes points that are, you're like,
you kind of agree with him.
You're kind of right, man. Killmonger, hashtag Killmonger was right. But there's a point, dude. I can't lie though. Obviously, the introduction of Killmonger and Michael B. Jordan. I love Michael B. Jordan. We've talked about it at length because he's done the previous 2 films we talked about. But the fact that I literally like freaked out in the theater when I found out his master plan, the master evil plan of this movie. He's like, all right. And I'm like, I'm ready for it, Killmonger. Hit me. Let's go. He's like, all right, I got my master evil plan. And I'm like, what's your master evil plan? And he's like, my master evil plan is, let's take all this Wakandan technology. Let's take all the crazy weapons we got and give it to black people all over the world. And I'm just like, yo, drop the mic, bro. That's crazy. His master plan was literally to arm all black people all over the world with Wakandan weapons. Bro, that's crazy. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. And I'm like, yo, that's your crazy master plan? That's gnarly, dude. That's like, when he said that, I was just like, wow, that's bold, dude. That's bold to put that in a movie. That's like a crazy modern super futuristic jaded version of a Malcolm X. Where it's like, I'm gonna take it another level, and I'm gonna say, let's arm all black people all over the world and kind of make up for past sins of white people or of other people who have oppressed black people their entire generations and thousands of years. When he says that in the movie, he says, we've been oppressed for thousands of years. Let's make up for it by giving all these black people weapons all over the world. And I'm like, yo, that's crazy. What did you think of that when you heard that?
I mean, I think that's definitely, I mean, that's more of like what the actual Black Panthers are fighting for back in like the 60s and 70s. And then, and that's, you know, I mean, and frankly, that's like the U.S. tactic in like overthrowing like governments and wars, is arming rebels. And that's how, you know, the U.S. is obviously the bad guys too. So like, you know, that's having that as a representation of like the overbearing leader, being the person who's encouraging like an uprising, an overthrowing of the traditional like white patriarchy and all that kind of stuff, is just really fascinating that he took that approach. And his plan and doing and executing that plan with manipulating Claw the entire time, as we find out, taking Claw's body and actually
that twist was so good. Keep going, but that twist was so good.
I mean, his plan was like so exact, and it made perfect sense. There was no way in having that Ryan Coogler character being so jaded by his father being killed at the hands of Claw, bringing that directly to him and showing that he's of Wakandan royalty, having that ring. It makes perfect sense why that challenge will happen. And then once that challenge does happen and he actually beats the good guy, it's like, whoa, this is you know, we never see a Marvel villain go all the way up to that level. You know, Loki in the first Thor obviously had Thor on like the ropes, keeping him on Earth and whatnot. But like this movie, he's like the hero literally like fucking dies pretty much. And we see the bad guy win and how his plan is going to get executed. So it's really amazing.
It's crazy thinking of that too, that fight scene where he like beats him and then throws him off the edge of the waterfall, and you're just like, like me thinking about it, I'm like, all right, what now?
Yeah.
What do we do?
Yeah,
and everyone's looking around like, we didn't think he would win.
Yeah,
Yo, what do we do now? This guy's crazy.
That's such a great fight scene too. By the way, and Killmonger had a great line in there where he says like he killed like his other brothers and sisters in war because he fought in Afghanistan and Iraq, and you know he fought he fought other black men and women and killed innocent people just so he could make his way up to the throne where he trained, and that's his whole entire life. Where T'Challa just barely beats M'Baku early on in the film, just barely, but he ends up taking his throne. So he wasn't even prepared for that fight either. So it's just amazing. Michael B. Jordan's performance is great. The way those scenes are shot too, and we haven't really mentioned the DP. I think her name is Rachel Moreau, if I'm not mistaken. Morrison. I think she's the same. She's nominated for Mudbound this year. But she shot Creed, she shot Fruitvale Station, she shot Black Panther. And those scenes of like the over the waterfall on top of the fight with the Dora Milaje and like the other groups, like all like the
Jabari tribe.
Yeah, the Jabarian tribe, like all like coming in with their, and like the whole, when you see like the whole landscape of the whole country just standing on the cliffside, it's just, man, that's so visually. I know. Did you see this movie? You saw it in 2D. I know you hate 3D, right?
Yeah, I saw it in 2D. I don't like 3D.
Yeah. I saw when we saw it at the premiere in 2D, but I saw it in 3D. Man, this is honestly the best 3D
really
post production they've ever done in any Marvel. To me, the 3D was like almost better than the 2D because like when you're on that sunset, you actually feel like the depth, like the sunset on the river. It's like you feel like the depth of field, and you feel like and you actually like get like I don't know. It was just it felt good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the way this movie is shot is like literally impeccable.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how well they did that.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously testament to Coogler working with his DP and working at an excellent level. I mean, obviously in the casino scene, we see a wonder that's super cool.
Yeah,
it's a super cool wonder that he does. And obviously the different aspects of the action in this movie is really cool because in that scene in Korea and the car scene and stuff, we get to see the Wakanda technology, and we get to see characters like, let's talk about the different characters like Shuri. What do you think of Shuri? Because Shuri had the opportunity to be like the Q of the Wakandan people and of Black Panther, and to help out in the sense of her technology and stuff like that.
Yeah, I thought she was funny, man. I thought she really was like the biggest standout, I think.
People really like Shuri, man.
Yeah.
Like that's what Twitter's going off about is Shuri liking her the most.
Well, she's smart, she's young, she has like a really funny perspective. My only thing though, I thought like the whole joke with like the what are those? Oh, I'm like, this is a little dated, man. You know, I don't know.
I thought the same thing, but I still laughed because it was dated.
I still laughed. I laughed
because it was
I laughed because it was dated. But everybody, when I saw it at the premiere, everybody's like, like I'm like, oh man, y'all think
and I was like, yo, that's so old.
Yeah. But to be fair, I talked to a friend.
I thought they were gonna be, damn T'Challa.
Yeah.
Instead of damn Daniel.
Yeah.
I'm like, are they gonna bring out all the vines right now?
Yeah. Vine's not even around anymore. But you know, it's funny.
It was probably big when they shot this movie. I don't know.
Well, you know, and you know, a friend of mine's brought up a good point. It does take place like a week after Civil War, so I'm like,
oh, that's so true. Yeah. I just realized that they were probably like, Shuri was probably watching that Vine on her phone or whatever.
Yeah.
Her Wakandan technology. Holograph phone.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice too. Like when they have like the actual. Yeah. And then when she's recording him as like he kicks the suit. That scene was funny to me too. Like when he kicks it all the way across and she's like carrying it back. Yeah. A lot of great, really funny moments. But by the way they like incorporate like T'Challa's powers in that. Because in the comic books, that his powers is based around sound, and like so like when those things burst, like when the purple bursts come, it's usually like a sound wave. Here they reinterpret that a little bit more into like kinetic energy. So it was just really cool. And then I love seeing how there are moments when like the kinetic blast back actually like hurt him too. Like when, I don't know, it was like a real small thing, but like when was it Claw? When Claw hit him with one of his guns or whatever, and then like he like blew back and hit the wall, and then like the purple explosion like hit behind him. It was like a double whammy, and that's why he couldn't get up. Like after that to me, it was like, whoa, that's really smart. Like that's really
I saw that too. I noticed that.
Yeah. So that's I think a lot of that. But yeah, Shuri was great.
Obviously the Peter Nyong'o.
Peter Nyong'o was great. Denai Guerrero was badass. Yeah. The whole scene in the casino when she like throws off her wig and like
that was funny.
His homie with that. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
And I mean Forrest Whitaker obviously is Suri, right? Is it Suri? Yeah.
I think so.
But he has that like last final moment with that scene before where he has to argue with T'Challa and tell him like the actual past and what happened, and then that scene where T'Challa's about to get killed and he steps in and like it's like just kill me instead, I'm the one who killed your father. Like a lot of great emotional things with that. Angela Bassett, absolutely fantastic.
You know who my favorite was?
Who's that?
Because everyone was like Shuri, Forrest Whitaker, Bassett. Mine was Winston Duke.
Winston Duke, yes.
as the Jabari King.
Yeah,
that guy was dope. I think his name was it M'Baku?
M'Baku, yeah.
M'Baku?
Yeah, M'Baku, yeah.
Yeah, that was my favorite supporting member. I thought he was dope because at first when he came out and he fought T'Challa, I'm like, all right, it's just a big guy who wants to fight and wants to be the king. Yeah. But when he comes back again and when they're asking for his help and he's sitting on the throne and he's badass in the mountains,
funny,
and I'm just like, yo, this guy's cool. I like this guy. Yeah.
And I mean, to me, that was the funniest moment in the movie was when like Martin Freeman was like trying to talk and Bob was like, woo, and it's like, and it's like, woo, 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 and like just starts barking him out. To me, that literally killed me.
Yeah, like, I would feed you to my children. And I'm like, I'm just kidding, dude.
Yeah, the vegans. That's also another great like 3D moment too. Was like seeing like those like bones hanging off of the thing.
Dope.
Yeah, the production design.
Production design was dope.
And the costumes too, by the way. Like Ruth Carter
she killed it.
Yeah.
That's the thing that stood out. Obviously, a lot of people focus on the story and all that, but the stuff like that stands out to like people like my mom who are like really into costume design. She adores the costumes from Black Panther. It's so good, so freaking good. But yeah, to me, he was a standout supporting, and obviously, the ones who really led this movie to me was Michael B. Jordan. Michael B. Jordan even more than, to be honest, Chadwick Boseman. I mean, it's just different because I feel like T'Challa's character is much more of a stoic, pressured king.
Well, we see more T'Challa's story in Civil War.
True.
So then this was not really T'Challa's thing. But I mean, that was kind of my one overarching issue with the movie. Though.
Sure.
There's a lot there. If we have so much richness in the world and the ancillary characters and the villain, Black Panther almost gets sidelined to the point where like there's literally 20 minutes of the film where he's like nowhere to be found.
Sure.
No, you could kind of retitle the movie Wakanda and would have made almost more sense than like titling it Black Panther.
Very true.
But I mean, but other than that,
let's jump into that. Let's jump into. Why don't you throw a few more at me? What are a few more negatives?
Negatives. I mean, they're like little. I mean, when I was texting you about it, you thought it was silly.
I kind of did because I was like, oh, I don't care.
Yeah. I thought the rhinos were a little stupid.
Sure, they were, but
yeah, we didn't see like.
As soon as you told me the rhinos, I'm like, bro, the freaking casino bite and it's the Last Jedi.
Yeah, that's way worse. That's way worse.
The horse racing that was way cheesier.
Yeah.
Than the rhinos in here.
The rhinos. I just kind of felt like you don't see like panthers come out with the Dora Milaje. You don't see like apes coming out with M'Baku's tribe.
Yeah.
But you see the rhinos come out with.
They just wanted to have Daniel Kaluuya ride a rhino.
Yeah. Essentially, which is not a big complaint, but that's a little stupid. And I think the whole infight on the train, it was cool for the most part. But the CGI did get a little wonky.
100% agree with you. I've talked about this at super long lengths, but I've always said I'm a big. My brother owns a stunt. My brother owns a stunt company. Yeah. He has a stunt team and a stunt group. And I was actually talking to him about this last night because he knows so many stunt people within the community of LA, within the Hollywood community. Mm-hmm. I hate it when they put guys in suits and then they just do a CGI choreographed fight. Yeah. Because the entire, almost, not the entire fight, obviously, but a huge portion of the last fight was computer generated. Yeah. Was this 2 CGI Black Panthers fighting and jumping at each other and like super fast and stuff. Like, I hate CG fights. Like, I hate them. Like, for me, it's like if you have actual martial artists, you know me, I'm a huge martial arts fan. Yeah. Like, that's my thing. Yeah. Martial arts. If you have actual martial artists in the suit, have them go at it, man. In the suit. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be like, well, once the mask is on, CGI. Once the mask is off, it's Chadwick Boseman talking.
Yeah.
No, let's have the mask on and let's have martial artist guys in the suit and have a fight within the suit.
Yeah.
Like an in-camera fight, not a
yeah.
post-production fight.
Right. No, I 100% agree. I think that
I mean, I still like the whole like throwing up the spear and stabbing him before the before the vibranium comes like heals him, whatever.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool. I thought that was a cool way to kill Killmonger. Spoiler alert, he dies. What do you think of him dying too?
It's just I thought it was good. I mean, like they have such opposite world beliefs. There's almost no way they'll like come to an agreement or like he could stay around. It sucks to see like the best Marvel villain just like leave after one movie.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
You know, before I
just didn't know where else he would go, I guess.
Yeah. There's nothing else for him. I mean, he had his arc. He got
I don't see him being like, oh, I'm gonna team up with Loki or team up with that. No, he wouldn't. He just wouldn't.
Yeah. So it was just great seeing. But he had a complete arc in the story too, and even his last line, like with making the comparison to the slave ships and how they were jumping off because they knew death was better than bondage. Like that's powerful. That's a G way to go out. You know
the G way to go out for me was when he was like, oh, it's like Wakanda's not even that beautiful, bro. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take you up to see it before you die. And that to me was baller, man, because I was like, man, that's deep.
Yeah,
like showing him like the sunset before he dies.
Yeah, and because his dad
deep.
His dad had the whole flashback scene where it was like the sunsets in Wakanda are beautiful, and we see that. I'm like, damn,
that was like that was dope, man.
By the way, those flashback scenes it's again another
Sterling K. Brown. Yeah,
it's like another Coogler, like when we were talking about Kree, like those brief flashes, having that like surrealist kind of interpretation of like visiting ancestors in like those specific locations, and how the contrast when T'Challa meets his father in like the African jungle with the Panthers versus like when Killmonger sees his dad in the apartment in Oakland. It's just beautiful, man. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, Killmonger dying was sad because, like you said, it was probably one of the best Marvel. It's hard for me to rank Marvel villains because I all think they're kind of whack, to be honest. Except for maybe Vulture. I think Vulture's kind of cool. I think Baron Zemo is underrated.
I think to me, you disagree with this, but I think the Winter Soldier is like actually my favorite personal villain from the Winter Soldier. But then, he obviously has a redemption arc and he becomes a good guy.
Yeah, that's why it's so hard because you say someone like Loki too. It's like Loki's not really a villain.
He's not a villain anymore.
Bucky's not really a villain.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just a guy who's mind controlled. Whereas like I'm talking about villain. I'm talking about guy who wants to kill
like
you.
In terms of like evil motivation, I think Killmonger has the best motivation and he has like the most characterization.
I think for me it's Killmonger and Vulture. I think Vulture is underrated. I like Michael Keaton as Vulture. I think his villain. I know you had some issues with it. But I liked that he came from like a really genuine place, kind of like Killmonger.
Yeah, and he did. Yeah,
both of them come from like a real place.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that I think Marvel's starting to catch on to the idea of putting better villains in their movies. I think particularly with Spider-Man and. Thor Ragnarok, the villain wasn't really great in that, but
no, it wasn't.
But it still had.
But it's still a great movie.
Yeah, it had the family connection too. Though,
it did.
You know what I mean,
I think it had I think Thor Ragnarok had an awesome story of the sense of like. I loved finding out that Asgard has its bloody hands.
Yeah.
Like Asgard was like the reason why Asgard is so rich and so cool is because they killed everyone else and they literally went planet to planet just kicking ass and taking people's gold and stuff like that. When you learn about the colonial aspect of Asgard, I think that was awesome.
Yeah, and but it's nice seeing that the particularly with Thor and with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 also having like another family connection with I think Ego's a great villain too, by the way, but I think that
he's all right.
Well, I think for him, he's more of a villain in the sense that you don't know he's a villain the entire time. But then when you rewatch it, he does present like a lot of villainy things, and it's just really, and the fact that he's able to manipulate Star-Lord that much is like really powerful. Being his father and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it's amazing that we see Marvel paying more attention to the villains, particularly with Vulture, with now Killmonger, and those the aforementioned Thor Ragnarok and Guardians. But now that I think that's why hopefully the Marvel movies take a giant step in the right direction with Thanos as well being their big
fingers
main.
crossed with Thanos.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
It would have been cool though to see Killmonger join the fight with versus Thanos.
Sure.
He probably wouldn't.
He probably wouldn't. That's why I kind of see why they killed him off, because I just if from the bottom of his heart his real mission in life was to make up for all the times black people have been put aside, cast aside, stepped on, and just literally lead like the biggest black revolution of all time. I just don't see him fighting aliens. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's just gonna be like, that wasn't, I don't want to fight aliens. Like, that's not what I wanted to do. So
where's some problems you have with the film though? Like,
you know what's crazy? And this is, I'm probably the only one who's gonna say this. I think I texted you after the movie. I wanted them to marinate a little more. I don't know if you felt that too, but I felt like some of it was just a little too quick for me. I remember I told you I wanted it to be longer. If it was 5-10 minutes longer and just let certain scenes and let certain moments marinate. For me, it felt like they were moving from scene to scene so quick to the point of like, he's dead. No, he's alive. No, he's coming back. Wait, he's king. Wait, what? How long was Killmonger king? Like fucking 2 hours. Like, it was just so fast for me that it felt like feeling the pressure of having the king Killmonger would have been so much better if it was like an extra long moment where it took longer for Chadwick to come back, T'Challa to come back. If it just felt a tiny bit rushed in certain moments, not every moment. That was a criticism for me. You already mentioned some of the comedic moments were just not funny to me. Some like the rhino scene was whatever. The what are those? It was just cheesy. It's fine. But I guess it's not really a criticism, but it's more of a preference. This movie doesn't have the same amount of energy that other movies have. This is very much a much more quiet, subdued, slow, not slow in the sense of pacing, but slow in the sense of like, this isn't like a 1-2 beat, 1-2 beat, 1-2 beat.
Yeah, it's like Thor Ragnarok. It's like it's
following
like,
Thor Ragnarok is probably my biggest issue, because following Thor Ragnarok, which is I've said it before, it's one of my all-time favorite Marvel movies, top 3 for me. This one doesn't have that punch. This one's much more like, what do you think? I don't know. What do you? And it's great, but it doesn't have that same kinetic energy that other films have had before, and that's fine. That's kind of why I liked it too. It's like a two-edged sword. That's kind of why I liked it, and that's kind of why I was like, well, I do wish like it was a little punchier, but at the same time, that's not what it was gonna be. It was gonna be a thinking man's piece. It's all about social structure. It's all about inequality. It's all about black people. It's all about Africa. It's all about different aspects of society. And that's what that movie is. Not every superhero movie has to be a certain way. And that's why I liked it too. But that's another issue that I feel it didn't have the same amount of energy that other Marvel movies have had.
No, I mean, I do think there are moments where the scenes do cut a little short. I think they could have added, maybe just a couple minutes to some moments.
Yeah, some moments felt like they were just like...
There's even some times where it'll like cut like immediately after a character said a line, like, oh, just let it breathe. Let the laughter set in a little bit before you go to the next establishment.
Yeah, like there's one, I think it was after the waterfall scene. Yeah. They were like, we want... Cut.
Yeah,
next, and I was just like, what happened? like it felt like it was just here. Like there's a few moments where it just feels like they were just trying to get through it as fast as they could.
And I think, to me, I mean, I think my only other kind of criticism, it's not really criticism, but it does have the very traditional Marvel thing of like opening with the big CGI exposition.
I didn't mind that at all. I thought that you needed that. People don't know what Wakanda is.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know what Wakanda is.
Yeah,
my mom doesn't know what Wakanda is. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I feel like you need that. Otherwise,
it's just same thing in like Wonder Woman, same thing in Thor, same thing in like a lot of other movies. It just
but I feel like it's necessary exposition.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know.
I didn't need it personally, but like
I don't know. I feel like I needed it just because I'm like, I need to know what this place is, because I don't know.
But then it also has the whole thing of like the villain wearing the hero's costume and the villain kind of
I had another friend tell me that criticism, and it's fair, but I feel like it's different. I mean, because Killmonger is not there to wear he's there to be king. He's there to do his mission. Like, his whole goal isn't to be the next Iron Man or to be the next Ant-Man. It's to be a king and to rule and to complete his mission.
Yeah.
Like it felt different than a Yellow Jacket or an Ironmonger. It felt like he's there to rule what he felt like his bloodline was meant to rule, and what he felt like he's put on the earth for, which is to complete his father's mission kind of thing. Of freeing the rest of the world of oppression. That felt more real than like a Yellow Jacket wanting to replicate the Ant-Man formula. Or something silly like that.
Well, plus, it just the whole thing of the ending with like the multiple different fights happening at the same time. Also, another Marvel kind of tradition, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
The whole same way Guardians ends with like the ships. I thought Martin Freeman was just like he was cool, but he didn't need to be there for a lot of it.
He didn't. But he's there to just connect the movies. That's a fair criticism.
But he's a big character in the Black Panther comic.
He is, yeah.
And seeing Bucky come out in the post credit scene, being referred to the White Wolf. White Wolf is another Black Panther.
It's one of the better post credit scenes. It's one of the better ones because recently they've all been kind of meh.
Yeah.
The only one that was kind of good was I think it was the Ant-Man one that hinted towards Civil War.
Yeah, but that's taken cool. Like right from Civil War. Like that was like the actual.
It was, but it still felt like it connected. And this one felt cool too because it felt like.
I like the one. At the end. Sorry to cut you off, but the end of Doctor Strange leading up to Thor. Again, another cut scene from the actual movie.
Where he's drinking the beer?
Yeah.
That was cool, but it felt like... Yeah, it was cool, but it just felt like you said, like, it was just taken from the movie. They're just like, Thor Ragnarok. All right, cool. But, I like seeing Bucky again, though, because he's supposed to be important and for some reason, even though I'm like, it's whatever. Bucky's whatever. He's whatever to me. But yeah, man, for me, the thing that stood out was Killmonger and was that aspect. Once again, I got to give a quick shout out to my boy Ludwig, the composer of this movie, the score of this movie, man. The fact that it has that African feel, the African vibe, and at the same time has that hip hop feel and hip hop vibe. I love Killmonger's theme. And it's like a hip hop song, and you're like, all right, let's go. Because it felt so like a mixture of like. Which is kind of the theme of the movie, right? A mixture of like your heritage and where you come from, African, and then the American version of that, which is hip hop, and which is the hip hop vibe, and it has both styles of music. And I just think Ludwig's like a master musician, man, that just needs more credit, and he needs more attention because not enough people are paying attention to him. And that stood out a lot to me was that score. Because that score was baller, man. Yeah. For sure.
Speaking of scores, where would you score this movie if you had to?
Ooh, that's tough. Tough.
Yeah.
I want to see it again, but if I just had to score it now, I would give it close to an 8. 8 out of 10.
Yeah, 10.
Yeah, close to an 8. Yeah,
I think I give it 8.4 in the Collider. By the way, people, 8.4 is a good score. I
didn't see your Collider thing.
Yeah, on the Collider thing, everybody was like, oh, 8.4, he fucking hates the movie. He gave it the lowest score. I gave it the lowest score because everybody else is giving it like 9s. Everybody's paid by Disney, obviously. I'm kidding.
He's joking.
I'm kidding.
He's joking, guys.
I'm kidding.
Please.
But no, fucking Christian's gonna watch this and be like, yeah, we're never putting this.
Christian's not watching this. He's not.
Yeah, 8.4 to me is what I said on the Collider one, but you probably put like an 8-ish kind of.
I would put it at an 8.
Yeah. It's a great film.
It's a great film.
Yeah.
It's a great. It's a thinking man superhero movie that really pushes the boundaries. And to finish up a little bit on our Black Panther talk, the first post-credit scene, the mid-credit scene, was about the fact that Killmonger's mission, in a way, was kind of completed. Not necessarily to the extreme that he wanted it to, but he wanted Wakanda to open its doors and to finally just like not hide their resources and hide their technology and hide their riches and share it with the world. And in a way, T'Challa listened to his cousin. And agreed to do that to an extent, and with having that scene at the UN where he says we're going to open our doors and we're going to let people in, and the fact that we live in a time in a political atmosphere right now where we're talking about refugees, where we're talking about climates, where we're talking about racial issues and racial discrimination, and having that be the message of the movie is so powerful. That I feel like that was probably the best part of the movie. Was the fact that the movie ended with T'Challa opening up centers in Oakland and having Shuri, you know, be a person who can help out people with her knowledge and her power. Think about it this way, man. Shuri might be like, I was thinking about it when I was watching the movie. She might be the next Tony Stark, bro.
Well, I mean, people are, you know, she
could be like, Ironheart. You know, Ironheart is like the next
Iron Man.
The next Iron Man. Once Robert Downey Jr.'s contract is up, I mean, who's smarter and who's more technologically advanced?
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing on Twitter is like she's 16, who's like smarter than Tony Stark.
She's Tony Stark level.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously Peter Parker, but Peter Parker is like.
No, she's not that. I mean, Peter Parker's not that smart. I mean, come on, Siri.
Peter Parker in the comics.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, Peter Parker in the comics is like next level, bro.
Yeah,
next level.
Not in the
like
movies.
He can make out of scrap. He can make like crazy shit.
Yeah.
But in the movies, you're right. He's not. They didn't make him as smart in the movies as I wanted them to.
I mean, Siri really kind of trumps even like Tony Stark.
Whoa, Trump not playing.
By the way, that post-credit scene does address like the whole modern politics division,
building
walls kind of thing.
It's oh yeah, he said let's instead of building walls, let's build instead of building barriers, let's build bridges.
Yeah.
And that's a very, you know, timely thing as far as like letting refugees in and letting people have the opportunity to succeed and exploring the opportunity of success and giving people a shot. And that's what Killmonger wanted. I mean, he said we've had thousands of years of oppression and of slavery and of all that. Meanwhile, you guys have been sitting pretty up in Wakanda on the throne. I mean, that's powerful message right there by Killmonger, dude. That's powerful. But I love that Shuri, going back to Shuri could be that next Tony Stark to the point of like sharing her technology with the rest of the world.
Yeah, I think Black Panther kind of opened up a lot of different theories. I think you're right with the Shuri maybe being the next Iron Man. I can
see her like in a sleek like Iron Man suit.
Yeah, made like Wakandian
vibranium or something. That'd be dope.
And I think I think, you know, with we mentioned the second post-credit scene how they refer to him as the White Wolf in this movie. The Bucky, I think it's clear now he's probably going to play that part more in the Black Panther universe, and we're going to see like Falcon maybe take over the Captain America moniker after Infinity War 2. It's my prediction, guys. Prediction time.
Cool.
I think that's what's going to happen. I think Bucky's going to play White Wolf in future Black Panther movies, and I think that Shuri's going to become the next Iron Man. Those are my predictions.
Hey, I'm the one who told you that.
You got the
that's
Shuri
my
thing.
prediction. I'm playing, dude. That's you too.
But yeah, I think that's where and I think Black Panther, you know, the new run of the Black Panther comic book written by Ta-Nehisi Coates is really about really the foundation of that is like the Wakandians questioning T'Challa's like involvement in the outside world. Like, why does he keep going off to fight with the Avengers when there's problems that he has to confront there at home? So I think that's gonna be interesting to explore.
That's really
in future
interesting.
Sequels, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool, man. All right. Those were our thoughts on Black Panther and on Ryan Coogler. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that episode, guys. Let us know what you guys thought of Black Panther in the comments down below. Yeah, guys, let us know what you think of our episode, of this character, and of this director, because I really do feel like he's on the come up of something great, and he already accomplished something great with making one of the biggest movies of all time when it comes to box office, and one of the most successful movies when it comes to critics. So shout out to Ryan Coogler, all the success towards you. I am Ace.
This is RB3.
And that was the Meaning of Podcast. We are peacing out, guys. Peace out.